overview of what's about to happen. You'll see me at the beginning and at the end. My name is Chris Welch. If you guys don't know me, I'm one of the 5 owners, head coaches here. We have 3 much more intelligent than I speakers that are about to present in front of you, talking about the importance of, I guess, total wellness, a total wealth lifestyle, and then I'll break out at the end what I propose, what we propose the next 45 days looks like to tackle that. So Dr. Derek is going to talk about sort of our mind. Sarah's going to talk about nutrition. Dr. Justin's going to talk about movement. So eat, move, think. Those 3 things. If you're a Franson patient, that sort of should sort of be pretty continuous in your head, because I know that's sort of something you guys are big on. 5 plus, if you guys have ever been to our website and seen the 5 pillars of wellness that we try to, we don't preach it, but we try to embody it in everything we do here. This should make sense as well. Brandon's putting out extra seating, but I got 5 front and center spots right in front of me. So please grab a seat. The alternate seating is not nearly as comfortable as actual chairs. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my better half and a half.
Half and a half. I'm Sarah Welch. This is Samuel Welch. I'm hoping he stays asleep the whole time. So we're going to talk about nutrition. It's going to be a very brief overview. For those of you who've gone through our foundation cycle, you've heard me say this at least once, if not a couple times. So what we're going to talk about is essentially how food affects our body, so what our hormone cycle is, gut health, and then foods that are better choices versus not so great. So we're going to start with, everybody's heard of macronutrients and micro, right? So macro, you have carbs, protein, and fat, right? Micronutrients, I won't write them down. There are too many of them to list, but they're things like vitamins and minerals, okay? So what do you guys think of when you think of carbs, typically? Bread, right. What other kinds of carbs are there? Potato chips, pasta, cereal. Fruit, right? How about kale? Right, that's a carb. So carbs are kind of most people think like, oh, carbs are bad, right? I don't want to have too many carbs. Or I need some carbs, but which carbs should I eat? So carbs, we have bread, veggies, and fruit. Or probably grains, right? All right, protein, meats, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds. Cool. Hook me up. Now I'm in Britney Spears mode. This is great. Nice. You can probably clip it to it. Oh, woke up the baby. Perfect. And we're in action. Nice. All right. So fat. Fat. What do you guys think of when you think of fat? Nuts. Okay. Nuts can also count in the fat category. We have bacon, butter, so dairy, oils, good. And I'm gonna put coconut and avocado. My two favorites. All right, so this is our list of foods. So when we think about preparing a plate, we want to think about our macronutrients. there's a cycle that happens starting with insulin when you eat food. Insulin you can think of as the mailman. So you put the food in your mouth, the mailman comes, breaks it down into sugars in the form of glycogen, right? So your muscles and liver store glycogen for use for energy for later. So we need that in order to survive. But if we have excess, the mailman has a finite amount of space, right? The mailbox is only so big. Our mailbox currently is in a snowbank on the opposite side of the street, thanks to the plows. So it's a little broken. But that excess gets deposited in front of your liver. Okay? Anybody have that nice layer of leaven on the front and some lemons on the sides? Yeah. So that's thanks to the mailman and the foods that we choose to put in our mouths. So that glycogen store is fine, right? And then the excess comes because we essentially think we're starving. So your body's like, okay, I don't have enough nutrients. There's food substance, but not enough nutrients. So it has to go somewhere so that we don't die if there's a famine, right? Or, which really doesn't happen for us. More likely in our situation, if you get the flu, right? You're throwing and going and can't eat. Your body still lives miraculously, right? Which is awesome off of those stores. So insulin talks to leptin. Leptin is the hormone that tells you if you're full or not. So when you eat, you have that feeling of being full. Leptin tells you when you're actually full. So if you're eating carbohydrates or food that don't have any nutrient density, right? Like Oreos, I can eat a whole box of Oreos, but you're never full, and it doesn't give you anything of substance. So you can eat a ton of them, or potato chips, right? Delicious. You could eat 10 bags. But if you eat a prime rib, this food has a break, it has a stopping point. So you're eating it, and eventually you have to stop eating it because you feel full, and you are full because leptins have an opportunity to say, hey, what's up? We've had enough of this protein. I can't eat anymore. Leave the rest of the plate, okay? So that's leptin. Then you have glucagon. That's a really bad looking G. So glucagon is the hormone that says, okay, I need some of that energy back. So you've stored glycogen in your muscles. Now glucagon says, hey, I need some of that. I have to do a workout. I need to go to work. I have to chase my kids, whatever that looks like, right? And so that initiates getting rid of that storage for use for energy. And then glucagon talks to cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which typically in stress is not so great. You need a little bit of cortisol to be healthy. But cortisol is what's going to let you know if you're awake or tired, right? So when you're wake up in the morning, you want high cortisol levels. Ideally, you don't need that cup of coffee, right? Because the cortisol's kicked in, you're awake, you're ready to go. And then at night, you want low cortisol. Leptin is the opposite. You want to make sure that your leptin, you're satisfied, right, at night, so you can go to bed and have that long period of fasting. And in the morning, your body says, hey, feed me. You haven't fed me for a long time. So leptin is awake, right? So that's why they're opposite. Insulin, if you're insulin resistant, you don't know how much you need, how much storage there is. That's when your body kind of gets a little crazy. So that's when you need that extra snack in the afternoon, or need that extra cup of coffee. So this cycle can get broken really easily, right? But can be very quickly fixed with their food pairings. So we're gonna come back to the plate. So when we're pairing a plate, you wanna focus on your 3 macronutrients, starting with protein in the center. Everybody put up your palm. Now look at your palm. See the center part that doesn't have fingers? That's about how much protein you personally need on your plate. 1 to 2. Conveniently, appropriately sized for your own body, right? Unless you're my son, because you have the hands and a very tiny body at this point. He probably does not have that much protein, but he's a milk guy, so we're okay. So protein, that's the center of your plate. Then you have carbohydrate, right? So that's the big C. I want you to focus on carbohydrates that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. and that is veggies and fruit. More veggies than fruit, right? And you want to pick 2 so that your macronutrients, your micronutrients are mixed in. So if we only eat carrots, we will turn orange. You only get what a carrot can provide for you. You miss out on kale, which has calcium, right, and all the other good stuff. Kale is a superfood. For protein, we want you to focus on the top 3, meat, fish, and nuts. The reason we want to avoid beans is for what it does for your gut. You can get all of those macronutrients in other forms that are more bioavailable to you. For fats, you want to do nuts, oils, coconut, and avocado. And your fats go there, just a little bit. Because you'll get some fat in the protein most likely. So that's going to allow your body to have a nice slow insulin response instead of that spike. So has anybody woken up, had a cup of coffee and a bagel, and then like an hour later you're totally tired and you feel like you want a nap? Right? Raise your hand. Yes, most of us. That's because your insulin level is spiking and then dropping, okay? We want a nice slow long burn so that our bodies can be satiated for the long haul. So this pairing at every meal is going to get you there. The reason we want to avoid dairy is it's pro-inflammatory. So in our gut, we have these nice little buggy guys called probiotics, right? Lots of bacteria. There's good bacteria and bad bacteria. The probiotics, you can think of like a bouncer in a club, right? Keeping the good guys in, keeping the sketchy people out. We want to keep the sketchy people out of your gut because 75% of your immune system lives there. And let's be honest, everybody likes to have a nice digestive system. We'll just leave it at that. So, the foods that interfere with our digestive system are dairy, beans, and grains because they create inflammation. So what that causes is a film in your digestive tract and it kind of expands. So you have those nice pockets that you're supposed to have that help absorb nutrients back into your system, right? Think of like a slime in there that's keeping the nutrients from getting in. That's what these things cause, okay? So we want to get rid of that so that your body can absorb the most nutrients possible because nutrient density equals better health, right? So when you guys are in this challenge or thinking about the foods that you're eating, you want to think, is this making me healthy or is this making me sick? I don't know about you, I'd rather be healthy than sick, so you want to make sure that you're picking things that will get you there, okay? Any questions? Yes?
Where do eggs go?
Eggs fall under protein. Good question. Those are definitely allowed. When you think about eggs, however many eggs in the shallow you can fit in your hand is the serving size that you want. So Chris can fit 4 or 5 in a good day. I can fit 3 or 4 in a good day, right? If I'm balancing them. Don't try to put the many eggs in your hand. It's not going to be worth it. But that's going to be your egg serving.
Per day.
Per meal.
Yeah.
Yolk and whites, definitely. So the cholesterol myth with eggs is when you separate them, you need both to get the full nutrient benefit. Okay?
So but then what about cholesterol?
If you're eating a whole egg, fine. Is my short answer.
Okay. I'll take it.
Okay. I'm going to pass the mic off to Dr. Justin.
I'm actually good with no mic. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Justin Mariano. I'm a chiropractor at Franson Chiropractic. So today I want to talk to you about movement. First of all, what you need to understand about movement is that movement is essential. Okay? I know it's kind of elective and it's fun, but your body actually requires it. Not only does your body require movement, but it expects movement. Make sense? So we need to start thinking about movement like a nutrient. So we just learned about essential nutrients, right? Like a vitamin, mineral, or a macronutrient. We need to start thinking about movement the same way. Okay, vitamin M. Make sense? All right. So when we don't give our body what it needs, the body begins to break down. And we can see this when we look at our culture, right? We've engineered movement out of our lifestyle. And that's why we're in such a health crisis today. One of the big reasons is because people just don't move enough. So when people do implement or add movement into their lifestyle, there's a number of ways that you can do that. But the reason I love CrossFit, and it's why I'm such a big advocate of it, is because we train in functional movement, right? We train for everyday life. Meaning that when you come in here to do a WOD or a workout, you're training for the movements that you're going to experience in day-to-day life. When you bend down to pick your child up off the ground, right? When you put that tool back on the shelf in the shed. When you're putting your socks on, okay? Those are everyday, movements that we encounter every day of our life. So when we train in here, that's what we're preparing for. So those movements, those big, broad movements, full body movements, we call those macro movements, okay? Macro movement. Macro moving big. We're blessed at having a coaching staff who are experts in macro movement, right? They can break down these movements in detail and teach us proper form, because not only is that going to help us achieve our health goals, but it'll allow us to do that in a way that's safe and efficient for our body. Well, Dr. Derek and I are experts in movement as well, but a different type of movement, micro movement. So let me break that down and help you understand the difference. Back in the late 1800s, there was an engineer named Franson, and what he did is he looked at complex machinery. And what he found is that when you study the individual joints that make up that complex machining, if there's a breakdown in one of those joints, it affects not only the joints next to it and in line with it, but the whole machine in general. The efficiency and the function of that machine breaks down. So we call that the kinetic chaining. And we can apply that to biomechanics when we look at the body. So the same thing works with our body. If we look at something like the squat, and I need a model. There we go. Good man. Put this down here. So hop on up there, coach, and go through a basic squat. There we go. Beautiful. Turn to the side, please, if you would. Once again. Excellent. Okay. Now, in order for Chris to do this movement, a number of things have to be going on. The joints of the ankle and the foot have to be functioning properly. The knee, the hip and pelvis, the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine, even the neck. If any one of those joints begins to break down, or if there's a dysfunction there, not only will it affect the different joints around it, but that movement over time will begin to break down. We can see that with breakdowns in form. It can look like just discomfort when going through a movement, injury, maybe not progressing the way you like to, or even hitting your PRs. Okay? So, Coach, when it comes to the squat, where do you see common breakdowns in form?
Ankles.
Ankles? In what way? What do you see going on?
Most people, it's rare that unless you are squatting normally, life doesn't really cause us to create a full range of motion, mobility within our ankle every single day.
Okay. So let's just take the ankle as an example. And what I'm talking about here applies to every part of the body, every region of the body. But the ankle and foot alone, there are 27 movable bones that make up your foot and ankle. If any one of those begins to break down, or if there's dysfunction in any way, that's going to restrict motion of that joint. Okay, does that make sense? So what we'll tend to see then over time, if there's restriction in that range of motion, what happens long term if there's a breakdown in that part of that movement?
If there's restriction, we end up ignoring that area of our body because we don't like to feel restricted, so we would rather ignore something than.
Exactly right. Exactly right. People just sort of power through it, right? I'm kind of feeling a little bit of discomfort, or I'm not getting the movement that I like down there. I'm just going to power through that and go through that movement anyway. Over time, what happens is it starts to affect issues in the knee specifically. Now, I'm just talking about the ankle, but this applies to anything, right? What about something that I'm commonly coached on, keeping my body upright in the squat, right? So go ahead and show what that looks like, a proper squat, and then what you see. With
there.
So his chest is nice and upright. Now show my squat.
It's very common that we want to feel like we're going lower in our squat, and when we lose range of motion, we go here instead because we feel like we're going lower. And I over-exaggerated, but that's a common something out there.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. You can hop down, Coach. Thank you so much. So what you have to understand about the spine now, as you take a look at the spine, and there are 24 movable segments in the spine. That's 24 areas where there can be a breakdown that can affect your form. Okay? So what Coach is talking about, specifically for me, is in my thoracic spine. I tend to have issues in my thoracic spine, which prevent me from getting that extension that I need when I'm coming down into that squat. So what happens is I compensate by leaning forward. And what I can tell you is after a WOD, or a series of WODs throughout the week, I start to feel it now in my low back. Because now my low back has to compensate for that, pick up the slack. So regardless of what your objective is, whether you just want to do these movements with no pain or discomfort, or you want to be efficient, or you want to reach your goals, your PRs, or if you're just looking for longevity, a lifetime of movement and function, it's important to make sure that each one of those micro movements are functioning properly. Okay? And that's what Dr. Derek and I do all day long. That's what we assess. We help people identify those problem areas and then create mobility to take stress off of the body. So I know Chris is going to talk more about how you can get an assessment. If you have specific questions about that, I know Dr. Derek and myself will be hanging out after and we can answer any specific questions you have about yourself or just in general about mobility or how to get an assessment. I want to thank you for your patience. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Derek.
Thanks.
Thank you. Not yet. Okay, let's see. Can I erase this? Does anyone need this? Yeah. Okay. We'll keep the cortisol though, because we're going to talk about cortisol later. All right, so who wants to look good? Is that why you're all here? Like, I mean, honestly, like, who comes to CrossFit because they want to sleep better at night? I want to look good, right? I want to look good naked, right? Yeah. And that's why you're lifting weights, why you're running outside if you don't go here, why you're looking at your diet, why you're trying to read every Men's Health magazine about 10 tips to tighter abs or something like that, right? You want to look good, right? You want to feel good, right? But I'll make the argument that if you want to look good and you want to feel good, you also need your body to function better, right? And so I think that's ultimately why you guys are here today, is to learn how to function better so you can look good and you can feel good. So I'm going to talk to you not really about the mind and thought life today, but more about how to have less stress on your system through the concept of sleeping better. So in order to do that, you really have to talk about your hormones. And getting your hormones in balance, which Sarah was talking about, is really important in terms of how to help your body look, feel, and function better. And your coaches know that, and that's why they're always talking to you about how you eat. Like they know that our bodies haven't changed much since our caveman ancestors. And so they're talking to you to eat like a hunter and a gatherer. And they're talking to you about your movement patterns and metabolic conditioning and making sure that your workouts are constantly varied, right? But when you talk about health and fitness, sleep seems to always fall by the wayside. It's not a conversation that we often talk about when we talk about exercise. But sleep is really important because research shows that 90% of us are sleep deprived. And this is a pretty good composite of the population, and I'd say that 90% of you guys are probably sleep deprived too. And if you read all the research out there, there are thousands of studies on sleep. And I can summarize all of them for you in one sentence. They all say the same thing. It doesn't matter your age, your career, your athletic ability, your socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter. They all say the same thing, that sleep deprivation is going to hinder your body's ability to perform, physically and mentally. So we need to talk about your sleep behaviors so that we can help you perform better. It's not just about lack of sleep. It's not just about what you see in your day-to-day routines, like the head bobbing at lunch or the black circles that you try and cover up underneath your eyes. And it's not even just about the fact that it's going to interfere with you reaching a PR or allowing your body to recover between workouts, or even your productivity at work, or your patience with your spouse, or your patience with your kids. But sleep deprivation is a killer. Literally, it's a killer. So we need to talk about that. So if you were to divide up how we expend our energy in the day, there's really three major components. So if this is not spending any energy,
And up here, this is 100%, using as much energy as you can. You can divide it up into 3 parts. Right here we have sleep, doesn't require much energy. And over here you have exercise. And that's where hopefully, if you work out here, you're exerting a lot of energy. And in between here, I like to call busy. But ultimately, this is social stress. This is psychological stress. This is the relationships you spend time in, the environments that you work in, rushing to work, skipping lunch, eating lunch in the car. This is where we spend most of our time. We're in this chronic state, or this constant state of busy, especially these days in our modern world. Would you agree with that? We're constantly in that. So when you have a balance here, this sleep, this social stress, and this exercise, they all work together to help keep our bodies in balance. You have really 2 major systems in your body. You have your stress system. It's called sympathetic, right? Your fight or flight. And then you have your rest and repair. It's called parasympathetic. And those 2 are constantly balanced through your day. But I'd argue that most people, even when they work out here, they're lacking in their exertion. And 90% of the people that in the population are lacking in their sleep. And they are just going full bore with the constant technology pulling at us for our time and relationships pulling at us for our time. And we're constantly being stuck in this chronic state. And what happens is this creates a metabolic derangement, meaning it throws our balance out of whack. And we're no longer balanced. Now, stress is normal. Stress is important, right? If it's an acute stress, a short-term stress, meaning either, if you're trying to get away from a tiger, right? Or an alligator, right? Or you're trying to not get hit by a car crossing the street. Stress is super important. It allows you to pump blood out to your muscles. It raises your heart rate. It allows you to get away quickly from the problem, or the problem gets you and the problem ends, right? The tiger gets you, right? So stress serves you well, but it does not serve you well if it's a chronic stress, because you don't get along with a coworker or a spouse, or your job is stressful. This chronic stress, when we spend all this time in this area, it's going to have big impacts on your health. Now, fortunately, over thousands of generations, we have developed coping mechanisms for chronic stress. Our bodies have developed the ability to handle chronic stress. But unfortunately, until the last 100 years or so, the only true chronic stress that man experienced was famine, what Sarah was talking about. So we have developed this uncanny ability to store fat, so we could deal with famine. And now we spend all our days stuck in this chronic state of stress, not getting enough sleep and not getting enough exercise, and we're getting really good at storing fat. It's called stress debt. It's called fat belly, right? It's hard to cut that down no matter how well you eat if you're not balancing this. So Crossfitters are people that work out here, and I'd say that probably the Franson patients as well kind of understand this already. And that's why you're doing things like Metcons a few days a week to really help to condition your metabolism and help you to balance that. But 90% of us are still losing it here. So let's talk about what's wrong with our sleep. There's 2 major things I see wrong with our sleep. One is our unnatural cycles. Right? So you have a normal circadian rhythm, right? We were designed, we evolved over time. Cavemen would hunt all day long, and then when it got dark, they'd go to the cave and crash, right? Because it was kind of dangerous to be out in the dark. And we'd go to sleep, and our bodies would, our tissues would repair, our brains would process the information from the day. That's the normal system. But nowadays, we've made the days longer, right? Who's staying up, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, checking Facebook right before bed, that type of thing. We've made our days longer, we've made our days, and we've made our, basically our levels of stress just chronically elevated. And so because of that, we've disrupted that normal rhythm of getting to bed when it gets dark. And we're getting up earlier to beat the traffic. And so we've disrupted that rhythm. If you look at your cortisol levels, right here, through the day, this is night, this is morning, the cortisol levels typically will be So they rise as the day starts, and they slowly decline as you approach night. Right? That's the normal cycle. And that allows you to have a lot of energy during the day, and slowly as you get closer to bedtime, your melatonin levels will go up. That's your sleep hormone, and you get ready for bed. But when we're living in this state all the time and not balancing it out, this level basically stays really constant. And when you have high cortisol levels, you get things like high blood pressure. Your elevated blood pressure, because you got to run away from that tiger, right? Elevated cholesterol levels, because what if the tiger gets you? You need an energy substrate, and it's good for wound repair. Your clotting factors go up because, again, you got to stop that bleeding if the tiger gets you. Your blood sugar goes up because you got to pump sugar in your bloodstream to get energy out to your cells so you can run away. And your heart rate goes up. So what does that sound like to anyone? High blood pressure, high heart rate, high pulse, high cholesterol, right? It sounds like disease is a good way to put it. At the same time, your insulin sensitivity is going to go down. So this leads to type 2 diabetes. Your immunity is going to be compromised because the white blood cell is not going to help you get away from the tiger. Your serotonin levels will go down. Your reproductive functions will go down because that's really not going to help you with the tiger either. Hopefully. So we see this happening in our days, right? And even your sleep cycles will go down. So what's it all mean? It's just that we've thrown that cycle out of whack. So we need to get back to our natural cycles. So during this challenge, one thing to focus on is getting to bed earlier. We're going to ask you guys to make some goals, right? To set some goals in terms of your sleep. Getting to bed by 10 o'clock each night. Getting at least 7.5 hours of sleep. Practicing an e-fast. So has anyone ever heard of an e-fast? Some people, right? So the other thing we do is, besides unnatural cycles, we've got unnatural light, right? So LCD screens, plasma screens, iPhones, Nooks, Kindles, everything, laptops in the bedroom. All these screens are changing our physiology, making us think it's daytime all the time. The blue light emitted from a digital screen or a TV is the same to our eyes and to our body as sunlight. So if you're checking your Facebook right before bed, you're basically telling your body that it's daytime and it's keeping you up. And you may not realize it, but it's affecting the quality of the sleep that you're getting. So for tactics or strategies during this 45 days, it makes sense to get to bed earlier, 10 o'clock. Set a goal. Don't just say I'm going to get to bed earlier because that's not an achievable goal. You have to set a timeline. And then work towards that goal 15 minutes earlier every night over a period of time until you can reach that goal. 7.5 hours of sleep, you get bonus points for that. And then an e-fast, a 30-minute e-fast, no screens for 30 minutes before you get to bed. Can anyone do that? You guys think you can do that? That's probably, the 7.5 hours is toughest, I think. Right? So if you're not going to get that 7.5 hours, you get a nap. Take a nap during the day. A nanny nap, right? 10, 15-minute nap. Totally resets your system. It resets your hormone balance, and it will help you get through the rest of the day. Because this is all about successful living, right? You want to live more successfully, and healthy people have a successful strategy for living. So it's about mastering your life, right? And so in order to master your life, you really need to master your day. And if you want to master your day, you need to master your morning first. And if you want to master your morning, you need to master yourself. So we're going to ask you to make morning rituals, or create morning rituals. Now, a ritual is something that you get to do. A routine is something that you have to do. So I want you guys to focus on rituals, okay? So does this sound like anyone? You wake up in the morning, you hit the snooze button for the 5th time, you jump out of bed, you rush to the shower, you skip breakfast because you're late, jump in the car, into traffic, and you barely make it to work on time, right? That's a pretty typical morning for a few people, especially Brandon. I mean, he's got such a long commute. But that's what you see with so many people, and what that's doing is setting you up for failure from the very beginning of the day. Because you're pushing all those stress hormones, that cortisol, those catecholamines, all those stress hormones into your physiology from the very beginning of the day, and that's pretty much where you spend the rest of the day until you get home exhausted, right? You get back to the cave psychologically exhausted. So wouldn't it sound better if you wake up in the morning before the alarm, and the first thing that you do is to just have some gratitude, to give some thanks, for the wonderful person sleeping next to you, for the kids lying in the other room, for the opportunity that you have that day to make it the best day, for the people that you get to interact with that day, for the people's lives you get to help change that day. And then you get out of bed and you spend 3-5 minutes just stretching, moving your body, doing some mobility work. Mobility is super important. There's a time to do some mobility work. And then after doing mobility, you meditate. 7-10 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour or 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable, but meditate. And then spend some time in a journal, just writing about your day, hurting your thoughts. Hurting, not hurting, your thoughts. And getting your thoughts about your day, getting you prepared for your day. And then, you have time to eat breakfast, a good breakfast, and spend some time with your family before you head off to work. Wouldn't that be awesome? Right? That'd be great. Because the second you left for work, your day would have already been successful. Even if you didn't go to work that day, you would have already achieved more than most people will achieve that day. So create some morning rituals for yourself. Get out of the rut. Create a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Tap into your purpose. Get up in the morning and surf or run or read or journal, but do something for yourself. Create some time for yourself during these next 45 days. That's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because it's going to take time, right? What I just described to you takes 20 to 30 minutes every day. So that means you're going to have to start getting up earlier, which means you're going to have to start getting to bed earlier too. So set some goals. We're going to give you some resources afterwards. A journal resource that you can use. It's a 5-minute journal. I'll give you a copy of one page from it, but you can make copies and you can use that every single day during this journey, if you will. Also, to meditate, it was always overwhelming to me. I would spend 30 minutes meditating and I'd be pissed off afterwards because I felt like I didn't do what I was supposed to, and my son kept running in the room, and it was more of a stressful situation than it should be. So I have found a great app, believe it or not, that really has helped me with meditating. It's called Headspace, and it's free, which is awesome, and it basically walks you through a 10-minute meditation every day for 10 days, and then I think you can pay for it after that. But that's a great resource. And then the journal we're also going to give you a lifestyle assessment so you can keep track of how you feel today, or on Wednesday when we start this challenge, and how you feel at the end of it. Sarah's put some information in there too. You guys can kind of track your progress, because that's really important. The people that achieve their goals are the ones that measure their goals and track their goals. And we want you guys to be successful and to achieve them. So those are basically the things for the morning rituals. So as a chiropractor, what I see in terms of people achieving their sleep goals, a lot of times people will come in with struggles sleeping, and there's really 3 main things that they struggle with. Either they wake up early in the morning and it's like 2 hours before they wanted to get up, and then they lie there awake, waiting for something to happen, and they can't get back to sleep. Often that's a chemical issue. And if you guys can start to work on what Sarah talked about with your diet style, you'll probably see those change if that's you. The other things we see are people who come in who can't fall asleep in the first place, right? They get into bed totally exhausted, but their brain is just firing, right? Because of this psychological stress that we spend all day in. They're stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight state, and they can't calm their brain down. Often that is a neurological issue, a psychological neurological issue, and we can help with that. And we also see people that it's the ones who wake up in the middle of the night, they toss and turn and they can't stay asleep, and they wake up throughout the night. Quite often that actually can be chemical, but it's often, more typically, a structural neurological issue related to the thoracic spine that Dr. Justin was talking about. And we can help with that as well. So there's a lot of resources you guys have around you, and we want to make ourselves available down at Franson Chiropractic, but here your coaches as well, so that we can be that resource for you, because we really want you guys to achieve success throughout this challenge, but every single day.